Lucas's heart pounded like a war drum as he slipped the forged ID badge into his pocket, the weight of his deception heavier than the card itself. He wasn't an Omega student, not even close, just a 25-year-old dreamer with a knack for bending the truth and a desperate need to rewrite his future. Tonight, at Crestwood Academy's gala in downtown Seattle, he'd infiltrate the elite world of alphas and betas, all to get close to one man, Ethan Caldwell, the beta director of the Academy's innovation program. The grand ballroom shimmered under crystal chandeliers, a sea of tailored suits and glittering gowns. Lucas adjusted his borrowed blazer, feeling like an imposter among the elite. Crestwood was no ordinary school. It was a prestigious institution where alphas, natural-born leaders, trained alongside betas, their strategic counterparts, and omegas, the rare, empathetic scholars who balanced the hierarchy. Lucas, a nobody from a rundown neighborhood, had no designation, no status. But he had a plan. Ethan, with his sharp mind and rumored compassion, was his ticket to a scholarship, a job, a life beyond the margins. All Lucas had to do was pose as an Omega student, charm the director, and secure a recommendation. Simple. Except nothing about tonight would be simple. He spotted Ethan across the room, his auburn hair catching the light as he spoke with a group of donors. At 32, Ethan was younger than most directors, with a quiet intensity that made Lucas's pulse race. Lucas smoothed his dark hair, took a deep breath, and approached, his rehearsed smile in place. "Mr. Caldwell," he said, voice steady despite the nerve clawing at his chest. "I'm Lucas Hayes, one of the Omega scholars. Your work on inclusive education is inspiring." Ethan's hazel eyes flicked to Lucas, sharp but warm. "Is that so?" he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Tell me, Lucas, what draws you to our program?" The question was a test, and Lucas knew it. He spun a tale of passion for learning, weaving in just enough truth about his struggles to sound authentic. Ethan listened, nodding thoughtfully, and Lucas felt the first spark of connection. Maybe this could work. But then the air shifted, like a storm rolling in. A tall figure cut through the crowd, commanding attention without effort. Julian Voss, the Alpha CEO of Voss Enterprises, Crestwood's biggest benefactor. At 30, Julian was a force, blonde, broad-shouldered, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to see through everyone. His presence made Lucas's carefully laid plans feel like a house of cards. Julian's gaze landed on Lucas, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. "Ethan," Julian said, his voice smooth as whiskey. "Who's your new friend?" Lucas's throat tightened. He hadn't planned for Julian. The CEO was a wild card, known for his ruthless business tactics and disarming charm. "Lucas Hayes," he managed, extending a hand. Julian's grip was firm, his smile almost predatory. "An Omega scholar." "I hear," Julian said, his tone teasing. "You don't strike me as the typical type." Lucas laughed, deflecting with a quip. But Julian's eyes lingered, sparking something dangerous in Lucas's chest, a mix of fear and fascination. Over the next hour, Lucas balanced his charade, charming Ethan with earnest questions while dodging Julian's probing remarks. Ethan was easy to talk to, his passion for education infectious. They discussed Crestwood's outreach programs, and Lucas felt a genuine pull toward the man's vision. But Julian kept circling, his comments laced with flirtation that made Lucas's skin tingle. "You're bold for an Omega," Julian murmured at one point, leaning close enough for Lucas to catch the scent of his cologne. "I like bold." By the time Lucas excused himself to the balcony for air, his head was spinning. He'd come to win Ethan's trust, but Julian's attention was a complication he hadn't anticipated. The city skyline stretched before him, a glittering reminder of how high he'd climbed and how far he could fall. He didn't hear Julian approach until the CEO's voice broke the silence. "Hiding already, Lucas." Julian leaned against the railing, his blazer unbuttoned, exuding effortless confidence. "Or are you plotting your next move?" Lucas's laugh was nervous. "Just catching my breath." Julian's eyes narrowed, playful but piercing. "You're not what you seem," he said softly. "But I'm good at keeping secrets. For now." The words sent a shiver down Lucas's spine. He was in over his head, caught between the beta he needed and the alpha he couldn't ignore. The next week at Crestwood was a tightrope walk. Lucas, now officially enrolled as an Omega Scholar thanks to his Forge credentials, attended Ethan's innovation seminars, sitting in the front row to soak up every word. Ethan's lectures were electric, blending sharp intellect with a warmth that made Lucas's heart ache for something real. He wasn't just playing a role anymore. He genuinely admired Ethan, and that made his lie feel heavier. Every nod, every smile from Ethan was a reminder of the trust Lucas was betraying. But Julian was the real problem. The CEO seemed to appear everywhere. Casual visits to the academy, impromptu meetings with Ethan, even chance encounters in the campus coffee shop. Each time, Julian's gaze pinned Lucas in place, equal parts challenge and invitation. "You're studying hard," Julian said one afternoon, sliding into the seat across from Lucas in the library. His tailored suit hugged his frame, and Lucas hated how his pulse quickened. "Or are you studying, Ethan?" The accusation was playful, but Lucas caught the edge in Julian's tone. "I'm here to learn," Lucas said, keeping his voice light. Julian leaned forward, his voice dropping. "You're here for something, but it's not just books." Lucas's stomach twisted. Did Julian know? He deflected with a laugh. But Julian's smirk suggested he was toying with him, waiting for a slip. As days turned into weeks, Lucas's plan started to unravel. Ethan invited him to a mentorship program, a dream opportunity to secure his future. They spent late nights in Ethan's office, discussing ideas for community outreach. Lucas opened up, carefully, about his rough upbringing, leaving out the part about his fake identity. Ethan listened, his hazel eyes soft with understanding. "You've overcome a lot," Ethan said one night, his hand brushing Lucas's as he passed him coffee. The touch lingered, and Lucas's heart stuttered. He wanted to confess everything, to be honest, but the risk was too great. Julian, meanwhile, was relentless. At a fundraiser, he cornered Lucas by the dessert table, his voice low and teasing. "You and Ethan are getting cozy," he said, his fingers grazing Lucas's wrist as he handed him a glass of champagne. "Careful, Lucas. Betas don't like surprises." The flirtation was blatant now, and Lucas felt a dangerous pull. Julian was magnetic, but he was also a threat. Lucas excused himself, his mind racing. He couldn't afford to let Julian distract him, or worse, expose him. Late one night, Lucas was leaving Ethan's office when he ran into Julian in the hallway. The CEO's blazer was slung over his shoulder, his shirt unbuttoned just enough to hint at the strength beneath. "Late night with the director?" Julian asked, his tone laced with amusement. Lucas bristled. "Just work." Julian stepped closer, his voice a whisper. "You're playing a dangerous game, Lucas. But I'm starting to like watching you play." Before Lucas could respond, Julian walked away, leaving him shaken. The tension was unbearable. Lucas was falling for Ethan, his kindness, his vision, the way he made Lucas feel seen. But Julian's presence was a constant reminder of the lie at the heart of it all. Lucas knew he couldn't keep this up forever. The question was, who would unravel him first? The gala's aftermath lingered like a storm cloud. Lucas threw himself into his studies, hoping to drown out the chaos in his head. Ethan's mentorship was a lifeline, but every moment with him deepened Lucas's guilt. He wasn't an Omega. He wasn't even a real student. Yet Ethan treated him like he belonged, praising his ideas and inviting him to exclusive networking events. Lucas wanted to deserve that trust, but the line gnawed at him. Julian, meanwhile, was everywhere. At a campus lecture, he sat in the back, his eyes locked on Lucas. At a coffee shop, he'd appear with a sly grin, offering cryptic comments that kept Lucas on edge. "You're good at this," Julian said once, stirring his coffee with deliberate slowness. "Almost too good." Lucas laughed it off, but his nerves were fraying. Julian wasn't just flirting, he was digging, and Lucas couldn't tell how much he knew. One evening, Ethan invited Lucas to a private dinner at his loft to discuss a new project. The space was warm, filled with books and soft lighting, a stark contrast to Lucas's cramped apartment. Over wine and pasta, Ethan opened up about his own struggles, growing up as a beta in a world obsessed with alphas, fighting to prove his worth. Lucas felt a pang of connection. "I know what it's like to feel out of place," he admitted, his voice soft. Ethan's smile was gentle. "You're not out of place here, Lucas." The air between them crackled, and when Ethan's hand rested on Lucas's, it felt like a promise. But promises built on lies were fragile. The next day, Julian cornered Lucas outside the lecture hall. "You're getting attached," he said, his tone sharp. Bad move for someone with secrets. Lucas's heart raced. "I don't know what you mean," he lied. Julian's laugh was low. "Dangerous." "You will." He stepped closer, his breath warm against Lucas's ear. "I could ruin you, Lucas. Or I could help you. Your choice." The words were a threat and a temptation, and Lucas hated how they stirred him. Desperate to focus, Lucas threw himself into Ethan's project, a community center for underprivileged youth. He poured his heart into it, drawing on his own experiences. Ethan was impressed, and their late-night planning sessions grew more personal. One night, as they sat on Ethan's couch, Ethan leaned in, his lips brushing Lucas's in a tentative kiss. It was everything Lucas wanted, until Julian's warning echoed in his mind. He pulled back, mumbling an excuse, and fled. Outside, the city felt suffocating. Lucas was trapped, torn between his feelings for Ethan and the danger Julian posed. He couldn't keep pretending, but confessing meant losing everything. As he walked home, his phone buzzed, a text from Julian. Meet me tomorrow. We need to talk. Lucas's stomach dropped. The game was about to change. Lucas met Julian at a sleek rooftop bar overlooking Puget Sound. The CEO looked effortlessly powerful in a black blazer, his blonde hair catching the evening light. Lucas, in his best borrowed jacket, felt small but defiant. "What do you want?" he asked, cutting to the chase. Julian's smile was slow, calculated. "To understand you, Lucas, you're a puzzle, and I love puzzles. Over drinks." Julian probed, his question sharp but laced with charm. Lucas deflected, sticking to his Omega story. But Julian's eyes gleamed with suspicion. "You're too confident for an Omega," he said. "Too ambitious." Lucas's heart pounded, but he held his ground. "Maybe I'm just different." Julian's laugh was rich. "Oh, you are. And I'm going to figure out how." The conversation shifted, and Julian revealed a glimpse of vulnerability, his relentless drive as an alpha, the pressure to be perfect. Lucas saw a crack in the CEO's armor, and it humanized him. Against his better judgment, Lucas felt drawn to Julian's intensity, the way he seemed to see Lucas's true self. When Julian's hand brushed his, it wasn't just flirtation, it was a challenge to drop the mask. Lucas pulled away, rattled. Back at Crestwood, Ethan noticed Lucas's distraction. "Everything okay?" he asked during a late-night work session. Lucas wanted to confess, to tell Ethan he was falling for him, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he kissed Ethan, pouring his fear and longing into it. Ethan responded, pulling Lucas close, and for a moment, the world felt right. But guilt crashed in. Lucas broke the kiss, muttering, "I can't," and left. Julian's text grew bolder, teasing Lucas about Ethan while hinting at his own interest. Lucas was torn. Ethan offered safety, a future. Julian was danger, a spark that could burn everything down. At a charity auction, both men were there, and Lucas felt like prey. Ethan bid on a community project, his passion evident. Julian bid on a rare painting, his smirk aimed at Lucas. When Lucas danced with Ethan, Julian watched, his gaze burning. Later, Julian pulled Lucas aside. "You can't have both," he said. "Choose, or I'll choose for you." Lucas's world was collapsing. He loved Ethan, but Julian's pull was undeniable. And a lie, his fake Omega status, was a ticking bomb. He needed a way out, but every path led to ruin. The pressure was unbearable. Lucas's days were a blur of classes, Ethan's mentorship, and Julian's relentless pursuit. He was falling apart, his lies fraying at the edges. Ethan sensed something was wrong, but didn't push. Instead, he doubled down on their project, giving Lucas a sense of purpose. They designed a youth center that could change lives, and Lucas saw a glimpse of the man he could be, honest, worthy. But Julian's shadow loomed. At a campus event, Julian cornered Lucas again. "I checked your records," he said, his voice low. Lucas froze. "They're clean. Too clean." Julian's smile was triumphant. "Nobody's that perfect. Lucas, tell me the truth, and I'll keep your secret." Lucas's mind raced. Julian knew, or suspected, enough to destroy him. "I'm just a student," Lucas lied, but his voice shook. Julian stepped closer, I could protect you. Or I could tell Ethan everything. The threat was clear, but so was the heat in Julian's eyes. Lucas hated how it thrilled him. That night, Lucas confessed part of the truth to Ethan, not the lie, but his feelings. "I'm scared I'll let you down," he said, tears in his eyes. Ethan cupped his face, his touch grounding. "You won't," he said. "I trust you." The words were a knife. Lucas kissed him, desperate to hold onto this moment. But Julian's threat echoed in his mind. The breaking point came at a board meeting where Lucas presented the youth center plan. Ethan beamed with pride, but Julian was there, watching like a hawk. When Lucas faltered under Julian's gaze, Ethan stepped in, defending him. The room applauded, but Lucas felt like a fraud. Afterward, Julian pulled him into a hallway. "Last chance," he said. "Tell me who you are, or I tell them." Lucas's heart pounded. He was cornered, and the truth was his only way out. In a panic, Lucas fled to Ethan's office, ready to confess. But Ethan wasn't there. Instead, he found a note. "Meet me at the rooftop. We need to talk." Lucas's stomach dropped. Had Julian gotten to him? He raced to the rooftop, the city sprawling below, and found Ethan waiting, his expression unreadable. The rooftop was bathed in the golden glow of dusk, the Seattle skyline a breathtaking backdrop. Ethan stood by the railing, his auburn hair ruffled by the breeze. "Lucas," he said softly, "what's going on?" Lucas's throat tightened. This was it, the moment he dreaded. He took a shaky breath and spilled everything. The forged ID, the fake Omega status, his desperate need for a chance at a better life. Tears streamed down his face as he braced for Ethan's anger. But Ethan didn't yell. He listened, his eyes steady, and when Lucas finished, he stepped closer. "Why didn't you trust me?" Ethan asked, his voice breaking. Lucas sobbed. "I was scared I'd lose you." Ethan pulled him into a hug, his arms a safe haven. "You're not losing me," he said. "But you need to make this right." Before Lucas could respond, Julian appeared, his presence like a thunderclap. "Quite the confession," he said, clapping slowly. Lucas's heart sank. Julian had followed him, heard everything. But instead of exposing him, Julian's expression softened. "I knew you were hiding something," he said. "But I didn't expect this." He turned to Ethan. "He's worth saving. You know." Ethan nodded, and Lucas realized Julian hadn't come to destroy him. The CEO had been pushing him, testing him, maybe even protecting him in his own way. Julian stepped closer, his voice low. "You've got guts, Lucas. That's rare." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. Together, they devised a plan. Lucas would come clean to the Academy board, accepting whatever consequences came. Ethan vouched for him, arguing that Lucas's talent and heart outweighed his deception. Julian, surprisingly, backed him up, using his influence to sway the board. Lucas was stripped of his Omega status, but allowed to stay as a non-designated student, earning his place through merit. Months later, the youth center opened, a symbol of Lucas's redemption. He and Ethan grew closer, their bond built on honesty. Julian remained a friend, his flirtations fading into respect. Lucas had come to Crestwood chasing a lie, but he found something better, a truth worth living for. As he stood on the rooftop with Ethan, their hands intertwined. The city below felt like a promise of new beginnings.